North American songwriter, we had the chance to talk to Tim and Eddie from the duo Handsome Ghost.
Adam was able to talk to Handsome Ghost over the phone. Their 2014 breakout single, Blood Stutter, racked up 20 million streams. Check out their new album, Some Still Morning.
Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and Facebook page at Bringing It Backwards and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bringing Back Pod.
We'd appreciate your support if you follow and subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're Bringing It Backwards with Handsome Ghost. And thank you guys so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
So our podcast is all about your journey in the music industry, starting Handsome Ghost and how you guys got to where you are today.
Cool.
We're
excited.
Cool. Are you guys both from Massachusetts?
We are, yeah. Born and raised. I grew up outside of Boston, Eddie too, and then left for a while and came back. But yeah.
Did you guys grow up pretty close to each other?
We did, I don't know, 20 minutes, something like that, 15, 20 minutes, pretty close.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we didn't actually know each other, though, until much later in life when we started playing music together.
Oh, okay. That was where I was kind of going. I didn't know if you were like high school friends or grew up together or whatever, but that's cool. So, Tim, how did you get into music originally?
I started playing very mediocre guitar towards the end of high school and then into college. And I started writing some songs, mostly a bedroom performer, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And then I moved down to New York to teach. And I started getting into the open mics in New York. And I loved it. And that kind of got me started towards, not being terrified to perform in front of people. And just kind of, slowly became more and more of a serious endeavor until I ended up taking a break from teaching and pursuing it full time. And that was a while ago. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So were you in other bands and stuff in New York?
Yeah. Actually, Eddie and I were in a band prior to Handsome Ghost. It was a band, more of a traditional folk band. And I played in that band for maybe 3 or 4 years. Eddie signed on at the very end, just as the band was kind of crumbling into a million pieces.
Oh, okay.
It was that was right out of college for me. So crumbling to a million pieces was still such a blast for me. It's this is great.
Yeah.
This chaos is awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What were you teaching, Tim? If you don't mind me asking.
I was teaching English as a second language in the Bronx.
Wow.
Yeah, it was one of the programs where you get your teaching degree while you're teaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great, very intense few years, and I was able to do music kind of around teaching, and it was perfect. It was a good run.
Sure. What about you, Eddie? How'd you get into music?
I grew up around music. So my brothers, I have 2 older brothers, the oldest being 6 years older than me. He always played different things. So I always heard it growing up. And I started playing violin when I was about 8, and it was fine. I always liked music, but violin to me was more like a chore.
Oh, sure.
But in high school, I started making friends that were in bands, and we just they taught me how to play bass, and that's kind of how I got into rock music. At that time, emo music, I guess.
I love emo music. That's my favorite genre.
Yeah, that's what I grew up on, I guess. Well, at least started playing music on.
Sure.
And then from then, just it became a passion, followed into from bass to guitar, and that's about it. When I was in college, my senior year, One of my family friends was in the previous band with Tim. So that's kind of how I got introduced to Tim. I had planned on going, I went to school for engineering, so I planned on, getting a job and doing that career path. And I met my friend Brian, who was like, oh, I'm in this band. And I felt really bad for him. And then I heard the band and I fell in love with it and decided to kind of make it my mission to weasel my way into it. And that's how I found myself in that chaos of that last year. Of that
Oh, wow. You said your older brother is 6 years older than you, and he was getting you into music when you were younger?
It was just always around the house. He played violin. My other brother played viola, and my parents listened to a lot of 80s Korean pop and ABBA. So
oh, cool.
Kind of always around the house.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Okay. Did he introduce you into any bands that you started getting into?
Yeah, I think for my family, it was ABBA and the Beatles and classical until he got really into Green Day and Offspring when Dookie and Smash were coming out in the earlier mid-90s. And
I
just
remember
kind of followed from there.
Yeah,
those are still constant rotation albums for me.
Yeah. I mean, Dookie changed my life when I first heard that record. I was like, what is this?
This is a complete aside, but in third grade, I convinced all of my friends that my brother played bass in Green Day, which was obviously before the internet times because I'm Asian, and that would have been very quickly disproven. But
that's so
yeah,
funny.
I love Green Day so much that I wanted to make myself
your brother a member.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you guys, did you meet up in New York?
I think we met up. I think at this point we were either I was back in Massachusetts or kind of semi-homeless, just touring around.
Okay.
I think that would have been post New York. I think, right, Eddie?
I think that was the time when you were just living in the van for the most part.
Yeah.
I tried out. He was in Massachusetts, and I tried out with the band there. And then when I graduated, the next day after my graduation, I joined them in New York to rehearse for a tour. And
Wow.
I never saw an apartment, so I assume he didn't have.
I wasn't sure if you were going to school in New York and that's how you kind of jumped into the band, but that's cool. So Massachusetts, and then you went down to New York and practice, and you guys are ready to go on a tour.
Yeah, we had a couple. It was probably a year or two, honestly. That band ended not how bands just kind of end. Not
Sure.
not a kind of a natural conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started kind of working on what the songs that would become the first Handsome Ghost songs.
Mm-hmm.
And Eddie and I were still friends and still in touch, but we weren't playing music together. And then when Handsome Ghost kind of got that first little boost where we were ready to go on tour, I called Eddie, or I can't remember how. Eddie was a part of the live band, and then kind of slowly over time we've become we're both involved in the creative element and the recording and the kind of the whole deal. But at first it was just do you want to go on this tour? And that kind of just got us back up and running after maybe a year away from music in between the two bands.
So Handsome Ghost has started as just a solo project for you, Tim?
It did, yeah. It was just kind of writing songs for the sake of writing them. I didn't quite have the total vision in mind until a couple of songs kind of just seemed to kind of fit together. And it was a solo project for a bit, and Eddie came on not too long after that.
Okay. You said you were getting ready to tour. You already had a tour booked just for yourself?
Yeah, we got our first tour. This was a couple years ago, more than a couple years ago, with our friends, this band Mr. Wives.
I know them. I don't know them personally. I just know the name.
Really good folks. And before we knew them personally, they agreed to take us out on what would be our first tour.
Wow.
Sometimes those tours, you know, you get like a couple weeks to like notice. So I was like, oh God, I gotta put a band together. And Eddie and I had been playing at that point, so it was just kind of, you know, we were comfortable together back then, but just made sense. It was
made sense. And how did you get the offer from Mr. Wise? Were you just knew them, or were you playing shows with them earlier on?
We were on the same label at the time, Photo Finish Records, which we're still signed to Photo. And I think they either got like strong-armed into it, or maybe just like out of the goodness of their hearts, they're like, we'll take this very new band out with us. But they taught us a lot about just what it means to tour and like professionalism and bringing a good show every night. That was a really formative few months.
Mm-hmm. So the band you guys were in prior to starting Handsome Ghost, you were signed and everything. So it was kind of a big thing.
It was, I would say it was not a big thing.
Oh, really? I think if you're signed to a record label, you must have.
That was like, that band was, I think in our minds, we were a big thing, but we were more like, and I mean this kind of in a positive way, because it was a good time, but like kind of just nomadic, playing shows wherever we could, kind of the like, if you just picture like a bunch of guys in their early 20s driving around in like a beat up green conversion van. That was us. We didn't have much of a plan. I think Handsome Ghost right away was maybe a step up in terms of, just like what it means to be, I don't want to say a real band, because I did really love that other band, but it was just a different experience right from the get-go. I was like, sure. Oh, this is what we were trying to do.
Sure. And had you ever been on tour, Eddie? Or was that your first run? Oh, you said you went on tour with the other band, right? Right when you joined the band? Okay. Mm-hmm. And when you got the call from Tim to join Handsome Ghost, you guys were you pretty much joined up and went on tour with Mr. Wives right away?
Yeah, I guess when we talk about our history this way, it really makes me feel like I have a history of making irresponsible decisions to weasel my way into Tim's project.
Looks like it worked out for you guys.
Yeah, I was working as an engineer at that point in Boston, and there was kind of talk of potentially a tour coming up, and so I was like, okay, cool, I quit my job, and so I was kind of like, I was ready to go. We knew we were gonna try to tour, and just kind of irresponsible decision there, but it worked out, luckily.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
When you say you're an engineer, were you engineering like music production, or was it completely separate?
I was doing I was in medical devices.
Okay.
So I was doing like mechanical and human factors.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was actually a fun life, but I would say music is
a much more fun life.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you do this tour with Mr. Vives, and then immediately do you guys start getting like, I'm sure like you're in front of a lot of people, so you had these songs and where people, you know, did you have anything to release and put in other people's hands? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, we got pretty lucky, like right out of the gate. The very first song we released, kind of like got a little action, a little love. Like we got a lot of support from Spotify right out of the chute. It was the song Blood Stutter. And I think that got us kind of moving a little bit. I feel like just that first little mini break is just so huge. But yeah, that kind of got us started. We got that first tour with Mr. Eyes, which was amazing. And then I think, truthfully, not to bring it back to that other band, but briefly, like because we had toured so much with that band, we were like very accustomed to being on the road essentially all the time. So after the Mr. Wives tour, we basically just toured as much as we possibly could, whether it was opening for other bands or doing our own headline shows. Like we were just kind of like, if you got a tour for us, we'll take it. And that, I think, with those, I guess, our first EP, which was just that first song and then a handful of others from the very early days, we were just kind of like grinding it out, like just meeting people, playing to new folks in clubs. And I think we built a little audience just from those early days of just touring and touring and touring. And we were just kind of conditioned, like it is, I think it's kind of a grind, but like we, at least at that point, we're like, we didn't really know any better or any different. We're just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get in the van.
Sure, yeah. And it was just the two of you guys on tour? Or did you have like a full band when you guys went? Or is it just you guys?
It was the two of us at first. We've added folks. I think we added another player for our next tour after that. We've played, sometimes it's the two of us, sometimes it's 3 or 4. I think 4 is as big as we've been, right? Yeah.
But usually it was just the two of you. Did you just jump in a car together and
yeah.
Wow. Well, I bet you, yeah, you less overhead as far as like people and gear and all that.
Yeah, I think that first tour we did it in Town and Country, and it was great.
Minivan. It was nice.
Yeah, the Chrysler.
Yeah. It's like everyone's struggling to find parking, and we're like opening the trunk with our foot.
Sure.
So it was kind of the old luxury days back then.
Right on. Well, I want to go back to the Blood Stutter real quick. You said you got a lot of love of Spotify. I know I'm looking at the plays now, and it's crazy. Did it get like playlisted? Do you know what happened there, or how it kind of gained some traction?
I think it was mostly, I think it was playlists. And we had just, some folks at Spotify who, really liked the song. And I guess we just, we had some just key supporters, just right from the beginning. And that was a very cool experience to put the first song out and just kind of, see it make a dent.
Right. Pretty
wow,
big splash, actually.
It was cool. It was definitely it was encouraging, and I think it gave us
like that validation you needed.
It was like, all right, like we're gonna do this and like give it a really good shot and put our whole heart into it. It was just, it was a nice boost. In the very beginning, there's so much work that goes into any release, but I think just seeing that right away, we were like, all right, we're feeling good about this.
Sure. Wow. So you toured that first EP in what, that's Steps, correct?
That's Steps, yeah.
Okay. And then after that, what was the next thing you guys did? Was that the Brilliant Glow?
Brilliant Glow was next after that, yeah.
Okay. And what was like the milestone from that record?
That was an interesting EP. I feel like that was a little bit of a shift sonically for the band. I think it's definitely our poppiest collection of songs. And I guess thinking back, it all kind of starts to blend together, but that was, I feel like we did a handful of big tours in there. I can't, would that have been that Fun Grizz Folk run, or was that still Steps, Eddie?
I think that was still Steps there, yeah.
All right, Brilliant Glow is like the lost EP for us. That was truthfully like that EP. I feel like we have to I'm never gonna look back and be like, oh, that was a bad EP or a mistake. But I think that was a unique one in that EP, each song was recorded in a different place.
Wow.
So that, for whatever, for me, feels a little more disjointed than our other releases. I still like love it, but that was not like, that was an interesting time with the band. We were kind of like, we were figuring out our next step, or what we were, who we were as a band and people.
Was that record, you said you recorded all the songs in different places, was that intentional or it just kind of happened that way?
I think it just kind of happened. It was like a few in LA, a couple in New York, but all different studios. And I think that was, at the time, it felt really good. And I think individually those songs are strong. But I think if I listen back to that EP, I can hear the kind of, it's just kind of, it's more of a collection of individual songs versus like a kind of cohesive. It doesn't feel like a record in the way the others do.
Sure. And do you feel like it's because of that? Like that you got a different vibe in each studio you recorded the songs individually at?
I would say so. Yeah, I think like just, it's a different experience than like settling down to make an album in one place where you have, just the kind of consistency to really think about and talk about the sound and then make mistakes and go back and try it again. That was more like, all right, we're gonna make this song in a couple days, this song in a couple days. I don't like that. That's not meant to cheapen it, because I personally hate when I hear that. If like, let's say my favorite song is on Brilliant Glow, and then I don't want to be like, I hate that record, because I don't. But yeah, it's kind of an outlier in the process to this point.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like at that point, coming off of Steps and Blood Stutter, there was a lot of voices in the room kind of pulling the project in a bunch of different places. And I do like every song on that record, but I think after that it was like, Steps did well and it was exciting, and then I think after Brilliant Glow was when Tim and I started really working together in the studio. And I think that was partly just like, let's just bring it back to kind of Tim's vision for what he had and kind of his tastes, and let's try to like quiet the noise and just go for something different. And I think there's been a slow progression from Welcome Back and then to now of just kind of like being more deliberate about the sound and overall the feel and the emotions that we're trying to get across. Some of my favorite songs are on that record. Like Didn't I Fade is one of my all-time favorite Tim Noyes songs. So.
Thanks, Eddie.
When you say like a lot of different voices in the room, do you feel like because, the earlier record, the first EP was so successful, like people were trying to, come in and give you, like, try to put you in a certain direction, or was it just, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, I don't think anyone had bad intentions. And I think at the end of the day, it's up to the artist to dictate, like, you make your own decisions. So sure. I think it is like Eddie, you're not wrong, you're right, but I think yes, that is true. I think it's essentially like Blood Stutter went so well immediately that it was like, all right, we are going for the win here,
right?
Like, we're gonna try to write like a really just like potentially mainstream EP. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Like I like pop music a lot. But I think it did stray a little bit from the initial vision for the project. And then, we've been kind of getting back to, our roots over the past couple years here. But I mean, it doesn't make it a bad release. It just makes it kind of a strange one for us.
And then the next EP you guys put out from there was Welcome Back. Is that right?
That was the next one. That's our first full-length record.
Oh, full length record. Okay, because I'm looking on Spotify right now. I see like an acoustic record of it. It was 6 songs, but you had that's a full length.
Yeah, the acoustic is kind of like a companion piece to Welcome Back.
The full length. Okay, I see. Right. On.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me about that. That was your first full length album you released. Was that pretty exciting?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the first time Eddie and I have worked together in the studio in the way of just kind of like, we're going to make this album together, and it's going to take however long it takes. We did it at our home studio, which was a first too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was a great experience. I think that record felt very true to the project, and I think it really pushed us to where we're headed now. I hope you guys can't hear this tropical storm in the background right now, but it's very windy here in Massachusetts.
Oh, no, I faintly for half a second. I don't hear it anymore. Wow.
Yeah, Eddie, you can speak to that though. I feel like I'm chatting away.
No, I think that's it. Like, Welcome Back was a collection of, some of those songs were songs that Tim wrote, and Tim's pretty prolific. Like, he'll send me like 6 or 7 songs at once. But that Welcome Back was a collection of songs that he had written. Like, some of them, like Reckless Lover was when we thought we were done with the record. He was like, here's another song. And some of them were songs that he had sent me like before I had quit my job way back in 2013 or 14 or whatever it was. So it was kind of like, I think like part of that was going back to like the ideas that he had put together for Blood Stutter in the early days. And part of that was kind of going towards our more folk roots. And I feel like it's just that at that point we're just trying to make something that sounded like the project and was consistent with what we had done with The Brilliant Glow and before, but also kind of like pulling back towards those early days.
Mm-hmm. Was that record all self-produced as well? You said you guys recorded it at your house.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Wow. So you just made the whole album and were like, here it is, and then it went out to the world?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much we got it mastered. But beyond that.
Yeah, beyond that, you didn't have anybody in the room chiming in on what they thought the song should sound like. It was just between the two of you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge credit to our label, to Photo Finish, who's continued to be, very supportive and fantastic. But at that point, they're just like, Tim's got a vision. Let's see what comes from this. And that's continued onward through Some Still Mourning, our upcoming record as well.
The new one. Wow. That's awesome. That's cool. Because sometimes you hear like horror stories where artists are sending, songs back to the label and they're like, this isn't, we're not going to put this out. And then it's like they get their guy in there to try to chime in. And then it just becomes like this whole, whole different animal that it didn't need to become.
I think the closest to that was when we're putting together the final track list. They like just kind of left one of the songs off. So that was their sneaky way of doing that. But as far as the sound goes, they've never been like, ooh, no, let's steer it this way or let's do this. So they're, they're a great label for a lot of reasons, but that's one of them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Whoops, that one must have slipped. How funny. Well, okay,
that is crazy though. Like I think about that sometimes. Like if you worked for like a year on a record and then you deliver it and your label's like, we're not going to put it out.
Yeah, or they just shelve it and they're like, sorry. I mean,
it's miserable. But yeah, we've luckily never run into that.
That's amazing. Was there like a big highlight from the debut album?
I think that was that our first like true headline tour, Eddie?
Yeah.
That would have been the highlight for me. I think like if you like we've we've been in the support role for, so many times, and that's great in its own right. But that was really fun to play, just to the folks that we knew were there to hear Handsome Go.
Sure,
Like,
yeah.
that was special. And I think, it's just like a different responsibility too, where you're like, we need to like put on a show here versus as an opener where you're like, well, we just need to like entertain for half hour or so.
Right. And you're just getting in front of people that are probably there for the headliner more or less. And when you're going out on as the headliner, everyone's there to see there to see you guys. Yeah.
Very cool. Definitely like different energy, like in the van on the drives. It's like, okay, this is like very exciting, stressful too, but mostly exciting. That was very fun. That would have been my highlight, definitely.
What about you, Eddie? Did you have a similar highlight, or did you have a different?
Yeah, I think touring is just we both obviously love touring, but it was nice to think about shows in a different way where it's like you could choose who you're going to go out with. So it, in a way, you could kind of like craft what the night feels like. So for one of the tours, we had our friends Francis Cohn come along, who's just a fantastic band. And it was just like, it feels right to hear the music that you want in the night, not that we ever didn't want to hear music, but like,
you got to pick the band that
like
you want to see.
You kind of, it's a lot more responsibility, as Tim said, but it's nice to see things come alive more. Like you could take time to do things that you want to do with the songs out when you're headlining that maybe like would be inappropriate if you're opening. So we always, whenever we're headlining, I like to watch Tim do like acoustic. He'll always do like one or two songs just by himself. And
that's cool.
That's how I became a fan of Tim's. And so it's always nice to see those types of things.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you have a new record coming out. It looks you've released a few songs. Are like all these like Vampires, Massachusetts? Are all these tracks going to be on the new record?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Rad. Tell me about it.
Yeah, we put out a handful of singles to this point, and I mean this new record was like just such a roller coaster in terms of like super difficult and really challenging in the beginning, and then finally we kind of had a little breakthrough, and it ended up being very fun. And I'm not going to say easy, but like it felt right. And we're.
When you say difficult in the beginning, was it just trying to? Creatively, or like, what do you mean?
Yeah, creatively, we like. I think we had some struggles in the early going, kind of figuring out what kind of sound or what we wanted this second album to be. And yeah, we just kind of like ran into a few brick walls in the early going. And I think it took longer than we expected, but eventually we figured it out, and we feel pretty good about what we've got. It feels very true to the project and true to the very beginnings of the project. I'd say it's the most intimate release we have to this point, or I don't want to say like, I'm not going to say folky, but I think it's stripped back more than anything we've released to this point. But it just seems like we got the 3 singles now, and we're just excited to get the full record out there. It just feels like it's a long time coming at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Welcome Back almost felt like if Handsome Ghost ended after Welcome Back, I feel like that would have kind of made sense, just given that the song spanned, all those years from the early days to the end, and thematically that was very much like, exploring a lot of things from the early days. So when we started working on this record, it was like, shit, we starting completely fresh.
Oh, because you said like
what do you-
songs were earlier on, like stuff that Tim had written earlier on made that album. And
Yeah, for
whereas
Welcome
this
Back,
is
there
like,
was
yeah,
some
and this
of
is
those,
just
and
all brand new material.
yeah, and it felt like, you know, story wise and lyric wise, there was something, you know, like a sadness and darkness to Welcome Back that we're like, you know, we kind of closed it off there. If that makes sense. So when we got to working on this one, it wasn't like, how do we tell the story of Handsome Ghost? It was just like, let's make a record. And with such an open space to do that in, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of ways to do it wrong. And I feel like we did all of those. So it took us maybe like a year, half a year, something like that to like get the backbone of what ended up being like the first songs that made the record. And, yeah, it's mostly a sonic thing. Like, you know, Tim is the writer that he is. Everything he writes has, you know, is good. So it's mostly like focusing on the sound of it and trying to make something cohesive. And yeah.
And did you guys record that record or at your place again? Or did you go to studios and do it?
We did that here. We did that at the home studio, round 2. I think.
Wow.
I'm glad we did. Otherwise, we'd be completely broke. But I think it ended up being a blessing towards the end. It's just so nice to have, you know, kind of the like untimed sessions where you can go as long as you want. I think in the very beginning it was challenging because we did have an endless amount of time. So it was like, let's revisit that. Like, let's, you know, it can work both ways.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was really nice to just have like kind of the comfort of our own house and our own schedule. And I don't know, it's tough to, once you do the you know, home studio thing, it's pretty tough to picture an alternative.
Yeah. Paying somebody hundreds of dollars an hour.
Yeah, I know. God.
That's awesome. Were you guys like, I know you're putting the new record out next month. Was that a decision that was always the plan, or has coronavirus thrown a wrench in your plans? Like, have you guys been directly affected as far as touring and in the album?
Yeah.
I think when we first finished the record, it was just about a year ago, and we were planning for it to be a winter record. So we were thinking like December would be, you know, when we would start putting songs out for it. And there's a million things that go in to putting the record out, and slowly got pushed back to where I think February was our target date for the first singles. And obviously that led right into coronavirus. And
yeah.
So yeah, it did. Initially, our plan was to put the record out or our second plan was to put the record out in May, and that's obviously been pushed back.
Right. And September is the new date. How do you guys feel about putting it out when we probably won't be able to tour it, or not at least right away?
It's weird. It's definitely strange. I think like at this point, I won't speak for you, Eddie, but I feel like there's a certain level of just acceptance. Like, it's been long enough now where we're probably not gonna tour on this album. It's just, it is what it is. I think in the beginning, it was like, are you serious? Like, no way. But I mean, it's okay. Like, I think with all that's going on, if we can't tour on the record, what are you gonna do? I think it's personally like, it feels very odd because I think that's, you know, you make a record and then you tour on it. That's just what you do.
Right.
So I think not having that kind of like exclamation point, or kind of just that getting out there and seeing people and feeling like, all right, like that record, we did it. Now we can turn the page. I guess it's just going to take a little adjusting, but That's okay. It's not the end of the world.
Sure. Have you guys done like the live streaming things and that type of stuff to kind of get the new songs out there?
We've been doing some live streaming. Eddie loves live streaming.
It's such a funny beast to get used to. Like it's really fun, but it can also be very awkward. So it's like, you know, when you play shows out in the world, you start playing to like nobody, so you get used to that. In a very safe space. When we start live streaming, it's like there could be 1 billion people watching, there could be just my mom watching, like, when I can't see how they like it or not. And
yeah, you can't read the room, so to speak.
Yeah.
Is it fun? What's more nerve-wracking, doing that or like playing to a massive crowd?
I would say live streaming is definitely more nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I think it's just,
Yeah.
we're like, we're relatively awkward guys, I would say. But for whatever reason, I feel like when we're doing the live streams, that's like intensified by about 100. So I would rather do I get a little nervous at an actual show, but I feel like once you start playing, you're good to go. Live streams, I mean, they're great in their own right, and you know, that's how we have to do it right now, and that's fine. But I do think there's like, you know, it's just an odd thing to be doing so many of them, I guess. Like we do them from time to time. To have it be kind of the new outlet, it just takes some getting used to.
Yeah, I feel like in the very, very beginning, everybody was like, okay, live stream, we gotta, you know, do something. And like Ben Gibbard from Death Cab was like, I'm gonna do one every day. And it's like, I'm sure he ain't doing them now. It's been like 4 months in, run out of material. But yeah, like I think people it just became way longer. And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see kind of what the next wave of, you know, creativity as far as that goes will be.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me is when we're doing this record in the early stages, when it wasn't going well, I think a lot of that was like, oh shit, how do we play these songs live if we got to work under that construct? And then at some point we gave that up, and I became really excited about like, how can we reimagine these songs live? And this record, Some Still Morning, is very much a headphones album. Like we want people to sit with it and just like hear it. And, you know, I'm sure everybody says that, but I was really excited to kind of get out there with our drummer, Austin, who's fantastic, and just see what happens when you have bigger drums and when you're a bigger room with, you know, big speakers. And so it almost feels like the story isn't finished here with this record. Like they're, you know, like almost like how we did the acoustic recordings for Welcome Back, to be like, you know, this is what it's like stripped. Like these are the stories, these are the songs, like this is Tim's voice in a room. Like I was imagining these live shows being kind of a progression of the record as well. So it almost feels like there's this side of it that we can't like see through, if that makes sense. And
sure, yeah.
That's a bummer, and it's a bummer because like we will tour on it eventually, but I've learned from this record that time to think on things is not necessarily great. So it'll just, you know, by nature be a different beast with time away from being in the studio and all that stuff.
Yeah. Have you guys been able to collaborate at all since the lockdown started? Like with each other, like perform at all?
Yeah, we've done the live streams and stuff. We haven't started working on anything other than that, really. There's just been trying to get on like the promo for the record and trying to find interesting ways to tell this story when you can't stand up there on the stage and just do it, you know.
Sure. Well, yeah, I know. It'll be interesting to see kind of how this all unfolds over the next few months, and hopefully, you know, at least this, not smaller shows, but not the, you know, arena shows, I think would be the first ones to hopefully come back. And, you know, I don't, maybe a smaller capacity or a, you know, a third of the room or whatever, which still might be kind of weird for people. Like if you guys are playing like, you know, 1,000 person rooms and now you're showing up and there's 200 and it's a sellout and you're kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know. Well, I guess, you know, everybody's in the same boat. So,
Yeah. The thing that I've been worrying about a lot recently is we've come to really love certain venues across the country, and a lot of those are the smaller ones that are, you know,
struggling,
kind of, struggling and potentially might not be able to stay open. And that's, you know, that's a bummer. A lot of those places are very meaningful for us. So.
Sure. No, I completely agree. I've seen a handful of them where I'm like, oh, really? And then you'll see at least some, they try, you know, some artists are not, you know, they're trying to do some sort of like fundraisers or, you know, selling merch and, you know, buying merch from the venue or whatever. Like, you know, hopefully, those really cool, like, you know, rooted venues are gonna be able to make it through.
Yeah.
So. Well, guys, well, thank you guys so much for chatting with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us. This was fun.
Yeah, I have one more question for you guys. I want to see if I can get an answer individually. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh, man. I mean, I feel like I would just say, like, just don't give up, which is, I know sounds very cliche, but I think there are so many times where it's super easy to just hang up the cleats and be like, all right, like, that was a good run. Like, I've thought about that a billion times. But, you know, if you can just kind of push through, I feel like, you know, not worry so much about whatever critique or setbacks. It's just one of those things where, like, it all kind of swings around and you can kind of just make it work if you keep pushing. Yeah, I guess, I mean, that does sound relatively cliche, but I guess that would be my advice.
I feel like that's kind of in line with what Tim's saying. There's always a reason why people decide to get into this kind of miserable career choice. So it's always, I think for me personally, it's been important to kind of remember what those reasons are, and don't kind of lose sight of that as you try to move forward in whatever this career looks like.